depends on whether we can stand united against those who would divide us by tribe, by sect, by race, or religion. It depends.
But Johnny, you just spent an hour doing that, talking about building a two-state solution in Israel and Palestine, about the Sunnis and the Shias, and the divisions in ISIS, with the Turks and the Iranians. You just spent an hour dividing people into religious categories, into tribal categories. I think that probably my best way to explain what I really think about this, quickly, is to point out that I don't. I'm probably expected to support a two-state solution. That's the status quo. Um, the reality is that what we see in the news is it, I want to say it's a caricature of what's actually happening, but it's more like it's manufactured, and it's not manufactured for anybody's consent. It's just manufactured to confuse the international legal system. The thing is that at this point, it's not entirely clear who it is that they're trying to confuse. So it's more like it's like a play that's being carried out with an audience, because nobody really takes it seriously. Everybody knows that what's really going on is that the Israelis are just screwing around, wasting time until they can annex the rest of the region, right? And from the Israeli perspective, the big issue is not whether we are to have one or two states. To them, it's clear that there's only going to be one. There's a popular meme floating around. It has been for a few years. Where do you put a Palestinian state? It was always, what was the word they used, or the term they used? Something cheese? Cottage cheese? Was it cottage cheese? Swiss cheese, that's right. It's Swiss, is the one with all the holes in it, right? Or Swiss cheese patchwork. I mean, there's not even a Swiss cheese patchwork anymore. There's like if you look at the map and you actually look at what's left, it's like a couple of neighborhoods. Like they're not even like you couldn't even say there's a city left anymore. It's just like it's neighborhoods. I'm talking about the West Bank specifically, right? So like there's nothing left, and what the PA has been trying to do, with the ICCC and everything, is really just a last gasp. Like if you think about what they're doing, it looks pretty desperate. It's because it is desperate. It's the last possible thing they can do before they have to submit and give up, right? So, what is the fastest, easiest way for me to explain this is to say that I actually support a one-state solution. The debate in the Israeli press is, the question, is it to be Jewish or is it to be democratic, and it can't be both. I think that the mere premise of a Jewish state is an anachronism that is actually so offensive that it shouldn't even be contemplated. We don't talk about a German state or as or a British state. We don't talk like that about any other nationality in the world. Why it is that there's to be this Israeli state is really completely incoherent with any kind of Western pluralistic democratic value system. So when they say that you have to choose between a Jewish state and a democratic state, that's not that's not an instantaneous example. I'm thinking in physics. I'm tired. It's not a like an example of something that is broader. It is the broader thing itself. It's the universe. It is the generalization because ethnic national ethnic nationalism in general is inconsistent with democracy. You can't have ethnic nationalism and democracy at the same time. It doesn't matter that we're talking about Judaism. It doesn't matter that you're talking about population growth. It's the ideas themselves are inconsistent. And what the region actually needs is to eliminate the idea of a Jewish state and to have a single state that is a democracy, where state institutions are secular, where people are treated equally regardless of their background or race or religion or any of these other sorts of things. A modern, democratic, pluralistic state where it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or an Arab. And, there's a lot of arguments against this sort of thing. But, you picked the wrong place. There were spaces available in Siberia. Um, there were some places available in Africa. You can't just pop yourself on the coast of the Mediterranean and the Levant and expect this to work out. It's infeasible, right? So going back to you've got this book and this has a bunch of crazy things in it, but if you want to believe it, then great, whatever. Um, I think maybe we should have that discussion, and hopefully I can convince you not to. But then again, I know better, right? Um, that that's one thing, and that's whatever, right? But to actually think that you can have this ethnic nationalist state at what is the absolute center of civilization in terms of crossroads, like you're smack dab in the middle of the world. You know, maybe there's a reason that you thought you were the center of the universe, because you are the center of the planet. And it just makes no sense. And if you do want this, this ethnic nationalism, this Jewish state, then you can't have a democracy. Because even if there weren't all the demographic pressures, even if, then it still wouldn't make sense. And so he said in the speech that the only answer was a two-state solution. But he's wrong. The only answer is a one-state solution. The real question is whether that one-state solution is going to be a democracy or is going to be a state where you have a Jewish upper class and a Palestinian underclass, which can only be enforced through, oppressive, violent institutions, right? So when he says, we need to reject people that would divide us, Johnny, Johnny, you're you're the master of this. And even that said, you know what? Out of all of these war criminals, out of all of these bastards, he's he is a lesser evil. Um, and I think it is true that the reason he's a lesser evil is because he's extremely naive. He actually has he let me rephrase that. He's extremely naive, but he's also um, I suppose that when somebody spends a lot of their lives being naive, they must develop certain checks and balances, right? So you might get burned a few times when you're young and kind of, find patterns and ways to make sure that you don't get hit. And I can relate to like that because that's, in a sense, I'm sort of like that. Um, although I wouldn't quite classify myself as naive, so much as I might classify myself as I'm not naive about strangers, but I am naive about people that I consider to be friends. Um, I put a little bit too much faith in the um, inherent goodness of people that I know, as though knowing me is a criteria to be elevated, you know, out of the masses of idiots, right? Um, maybe it's a special kind of naivety, but it's not the broad naivety. Um, but nonetheless, I mean, I've learned certain checks. Like I've learned that I don't. It's not a good idea for me to get too close to people. And I think with Kerry, what he's learned, from what I can see, anyways, after being burned however many times growing up and living, I think he is almost twice my age. Um, it may have been at the time of this recording that he was twice my age, um, because you catch up on people, right? Um, so I mean, he's certainly got a lot more life experience than I do, but you see the same sort of kind of hardening where he has a naivety of outcome, but he's learned to temper it um, a little bit, and that's fundamentally different. Like Clinton, on the other hand, is like just totally calculating and manipulative, and everything is just about how to serve her best, right? At the end of the day, the only thing Clinton cares about is her career. You know what? It didn't always used to be that way. I don't think. I think there was a time in the '90s where she had more of the kind of drive that you see out of a Kerry. But nowadays, it's just total machine politics, right? Um, whereas I think Sanders has more of that drive as well. Um, but I mean, is Sanders going to win? Excuse me for remaining very skeptical, um, even at this late stage, and how bad Clinton looks as a candidate. Um, I like Bernie. I hope he wins. But if I was a Democratic insider, I'd be very, very pessimistic about my chances one way or the other. Um, because if Hillary does win, it's like she might even win the election, but like what if you've got another conservative in office, right? So, but I mean, like, she's just like total, like, everything is just image, politics. How do I get ahead? Like, the actual issues are of no importance to her. She'll take any position she can in order um, to get ahead in the polls, which is really scary at this point in her career. You know, like she's 70 years old. What? And it's hard to know. She's 70 years old, and she's been in the public eye forever. And yet, it is actually kind of hard to know what it is that she would do if she was elected, because she spent so long just flopping every which way, whatever it is that she's told is popular. right? That's the really scary thing, is that it's really not clear. I mean, the smart money is that she's some kind of middle of the road conservative. Um, but there's certainly a lot of indication that she's um, a lot more liberal than that too. It's very hard to. I mean, that should not be the case at this point in her career. It should be very easy to delineate where she stands. It's very easy to delineate where Sanders stands. Extremely, there's no ambiguity at all, and he's made it clear, and that's what you want out of a candidate at that stage of their life, right? How it could be any other way is really how it could be any other way, and that person is a serious candidate. It's really hard to get your head around, right? But I mean, that's at this. What I'm getting at is I'm not sure that I put Sanders in this kind of category of sort of elite politician, right? Um, I hope he surprises everyone, but I don't. Maybe you could say that I'm not naive about it. Um, but Kerry has and for some time has been in that sort of more insider elite class of politicians, and he does really legitimately stand out um, because it's not manufactured, and it's really not um, pandering to anything. Like he really seems to have an actual you know drive towards doing something. Um, Another way to kind of point this out is that a couple of years ago, I was doing some rambling on the internet, as I do fairly often, and it came up to the usual, war criminal line. And I'd just been so used to calling whoever was the Secretary of State a war criminal for however many years that I just did it almost by reflex. It was like a an obviously true adjective, right? Um, Whoever was going to occupy the space would obviously be a war criminal. But I stopped for a minute because I realized that I really couldn't actually say that was true about John Kerry. And the truth remains that there's not a lot to make the argument on for what he's done. He might not be remembered for actually accomplishing anything, but he may be remembered for having a different tone. So, um, I mean, don't misunderstand me here. I'm not saying that he's the great savior or anything, but it is certainly different, and so I do like actually I enjoy listening to this guy. He's in a different head state where he's actually engaged with the actual issues rather than just trying to occupy a political space for the donors or um, trying to climb up a ladder or just for the sake of it kind of thing, because I could, um, which as pathetic as it is I think the case for a lot of these people. Um, there is actually a legitimate interest in engaging with things, um, which is why when he says it, when he says don't listen to the people that are dividing, um, it's a different kind of irony. Anyways, I ranted about this longer than I wanted to. I wanted that to be a quick analysis. Um, I guess this is my first reacts video, unintentionally. So uh, we'll get a series of these going over time.